As I watched the video of the blizzard of '78, memories came quickly to me. I was a single parent with one 4-year-old son at the time. We lived in a small apartment just a few miles from my parents' home. The weather was bad. I mean, the weather and snow was like a blinding fog almost. You could barely see 10 feet ahead of yourself. The snow had large flakes and blew with a wind that could knock over item that wasn't tied down. As I listened to the radio, I heard the news that the National Guard had been called out. I was 25 years old and worked out at the YMCA every day. Although I was only 5'2" and 110 pounds, I was young and strong. After shoveling out my car and putting my son into his car seat, I headed to my parents' house. They had been happy to have a chance to take care of my son for a few days. The trip usually took about 10 minutes, but due to the weather, the trip took on this day almost 45 minutes. My dad had managed to shovel out his driveway enough so that I could pull the car in far enough to walk my son into the house. My parents lived in the small town of Bernardston, where there weren't very many snowplows, and those that they had were very busy. Our house was on a small street called Harwood Drive. At the time there was no bank, no nothing there as there is now. The road had not been plowed and I nearly got stuck, but with the help of a neighbor and his car I was pushed out onto the highway. The highway was not much better, and driving a 1972 Datsun 1200 was a journey in its own. Somehow I managed to get onto Route 91 and slowly began my 7-mile journey to the National Guard Armory in Greenfield. I was truly hoping that with the National Guard being called out and the armory being located right behind the courthouse that the roads would be semi-plowed there. I was wrong in hoping that the roads were plowed and barely made it up the small incline into the parking lot. I parked kind of semi-straight and managed to get out of the car. At this point the snow was now almost up to my knees, and if not for my youth and jogging that I did every day, I would have not made it to the armory just 400 feet away. At the time I worked in the supply room. Technically, because we considered to be part of an infantry unit, I could not be assigned to the Greenfield Armory because I was a woman. Because of my not being a man, I was assigned to the Chicopee Armory. There was not much for me to do, so they had sent me to the supply room. That day men were coming in getting warm gloves, coats, blankets, anything that could be used to help people who might become trapped in their car, and there were electrical outages and the sick and infirm that needed to be cared for. Many of the men at the armory went out and shoveled fire hydrants. They brought people to a safe place. I don't know where it was, because as a woman I was considered too frail to know and help. During the summer 2-week active duty I had driven the deuce and a half from Greenfield to Fort Drum, New York. I had medical training as a medic and I was only a young in shape woman. Because of the attitude towards women, I spent my time sitting in a room with just a few guys that were either too old or too high ranked to be expected to go out in the blizzard. I did nothing but hand out some blankets and gloves while one of our men in his 40s had a fatal heart attack. This is the way it was.